Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. We want to let you know that we have once again been honored with a nomination for the Hockey Podcast of the Year via the Sports Podcasting Awards. And all you need to do to help us is go to ourkidsplayhockey.com and click on the Vote Now button. It asks you a couple questions. You're in and you're out, and you have voted for us for Hockey Podcast of the Year. I want to thank you all for being a wonderful, wonderful audience and helping us get to this stature of hockey podcasting, because we've done it as a family, as the hockey friends and families around the world. Thanks so much and enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. It's our end of season edition. This is a time when we reflect on all of our seasons. We talk about what we learned about. We talk about all the things that happened this season. We look forward to the off season and next season. And it's just really a great conversation. This is one that if you're listening to, you're absolutely going to be able to relate to if it's at the end of your season. If you're listening to this in the future, thanks for listening. As always, this episode is brought to you by When Hockey Stops. Check it out at whenhockeystops.com. It's a new children's book that Christy and I wrote about how to deal with adversity as a youth athlete. It has done amazing. We have gotten some unbelievable reviews. And if you'd like to support this show, that's a great way to do it. So check it out again at whenhockeystops.com. You get an autographed copy, some special gifts before its full release coming here on March 29th, which might be happening if you're listening to this right now. Otherwise, thanks so much for being here and enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to the end of season edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, or Our Parents Coach Hockey. Our Kids Play Hockey is a better name. I'm Lee Elias, and I'm joined as always by my good friends Christy Casciano-Burns and Mike Benelli. And as I said at the top, today's episode is kind of the closing episode for the 2021-2022 season, which we had, thank goodness, right? Let's just say that right off the bat, that we had a full season. It seemed to be pretty normal for most people in terms of parents were yelling at coaches and kids were yelling at parents. No, seriously, the season's over. We wanted to kind of have a rundown here of just how our seasons went, kind of looking into the summer of what we're going to be doing, maybe what you can be doing if you're listening at home, and then just basically an overview of kind of the season as coaches and parents, as what we can all do better to move the game moving forward. So I'm going to throw it right now. I'm going to sauce the puck over to Mike Benelli for his year in review. Mike, deep breath, take a deep breath. For those of you not watching, Mike has shaved his beard, which is the official close of the season, right? Mike,
we're over.
You're live on Our Kids Play Hockey.
Yeah, playoffs are done. And now we get to just watch a little bit of hockey and hopefully see some grass soon. So I think I think we had a, if I had to look at the whole season, and really just kind of sum it up, I mean, I always try to be an optimist on these and just understand that, although little pieces of the season didn't go, as smoothly as we'd all like as coaches and parents and teammates. But I think overall, knowing where we came from the beginning of the year and especially this year, because we almost came from a non-season to actually getting a season in. So there was a little bit of, more hope in there that, okay, we started the season. Let's hope that we get through it. And we did, and we were able to end it without it just kind of ending with an email saying all activities are ceased and you can't come to the rink anymore. So I think in that way, it was a, great group of, for the most part, great group of kids, even though all the coaches I work with, you try to remind people that you're always going to have your 2 or 3 parents that are going to beat the heck out of you. But overall, it's a real good positive experience. Had people shake my hand at the end of the year and send me notes and fill up the liquor cabinet. So it was a successful year as far as
that's a prep for next season, right? That's the preparation.
Right. Just a reminder, Coach. I just want to remind you that we had a great year, and if you're doing tryouts, here's some Glenlivet that you might enjoy. And so it's all good.
Well, what year is it? 10, 12, 18?
That should be a barometer.
That's how you know if you did well.
How you well. If the liquor comes in a display box, you probably had a good season with the parent. If it came in a paper bag,
Right.
Maybe it was just a, hey, thanks a lot. See
Yeah.
you
Here's
later.
a little airline fireball for you. Enjoy that.
I picked this up in the hotel lobby, and right. Thank you.
It was free. No, that's great, Mike. And listen, in the interest of not just throwing you on the spot, I am going to talk a little bit about kind of what I learned this season. So just think if there's any takeaways for you, I'll come back to you for that. I didn't want to throw you on the spot, but Christy, let's turn to you now, right? As the hockey mom of a NCAA Division I hockey player. She was in her junior year. Am I correct?
Junior year.
Okay.
Yeah. The window's closing. We got one more year. I was just going to say that. Yeah. Let's set that up. So
you're entering potentially your final year as a hockey mom of competitive hockey. So walk us through this year, and then maybe mentally what that's not easy. I can't imagine what that's literally can't imagine.
You know what? Mentally, I'm fine with it because we really embraced each season and we made the most of it. So I really don't have any regrets that we're closing in on the last year, because I've enjoyed every single year. I've loved the whole ride. It's been fantastic. And I'm excited for her to really get on with her life and to see what she does in the real world, when she graduates. She's got a lot of great plans ahead of what she wants to do. She's looking at law school. So I'm really excited for her to start that chapter of her life. And I'm okay with hockey ending. This past season, and in college you don't get involved with the kids and the coaches. The coaches you rarely talk to. Toward the end of the season, it was great. We had a wonderful ceremony for the seniors, paying tribute to them, and the coach recognized all the players, which was fun. And throughout the season, you really bond as parents, especially all of us junior parents. We really got to know each other this year, especially. Last year we didn't have a season, so that was unfortunate. So this season we really embraced it, and we spent a lot of time together. We'd go out to dinner together. We'd meet each other out of town. We met at Long Island. We all went out to dinner there. You kind of explore with the parents all the different towns and where your girls are playing, which is wonderful. And it's a different type of environment. Since it's more hands off, it's really fun and relaxing as parents, because you don't have the stress of getting your kids to the rink and making sure they're, doing all the things that the coach wants, because they're on their own. It's up to them. So it's great to watch them step up as adults and really look out for each other as a team. They've really bonded. My daughter loves all of her teammates. They're really tight. In fact, they're vacationing right now since they weren't in the playoffs. They got knocked out pretty early. They're all in Aruba this week, having one heck of a time, as a team, as friends, as classmates. So it's pretty cool. And then there were rough patches. She got a concussion, her first one ever. That was scary. And I wasn't there to see her through. So that was hard. And the transfer portal kind of messed things up for our team. A couple of the girls transferred in the middle of the season to other colleges because they weren't happy with playing time. They weren't happy with the team, and they left us in January. We, right as the team started to gel and to click. Unfortunate. I think if there are any parents listening, please instill the importance of loyalty with your kids. And those selfish acts of thinking, well, this isn't good for me. I need to do what's right for me, and abandon the team that you committed to at the beginning of the year. That's really unfortunate. I don't have any respect for kids who do that.
Well, Christy, I'll quote Nick Saban. He's a pretty well-known college football coach. Some of you may have heard of Nick Saban. He says that players that transfer like that over and over and over again, he goes, I don't want you at Alabama because you can't sit and learn to win with somebody else. So look, I think we'd all agree. There are scenarios where the conversation makes sense, but middle of the season, tough. That's a tough one.
That is a tough one. Yeah. But it ended beautifully when she got all nervous because the coach right before the season ended, he pulled her off to the side and he said, so what else are you involved in? And, she said, well, I'm with this committee and organization, and I coach girls at the local hockey rink. He's like, oh, okay. And she called me, Mom, I'm getting cut from the team. I'm like, why do you say that? Coach was asking me all kinds of questions. He's cutting me from the team. This is my last year. And she starts bawling, she thought she did something wrong. Turns out he put her in for an award and she got it. For New England Women's Sportsmanship.
Please brag.
Award.
Please brag about this, because I saw the post about it you put up.
Yeah, so she got selected to be on a team sportswomanship award for New England hockey, which recognizes you not so much for your performance on the ice. I mean, she's not a star player, but she does a lot off the ice. She coaches kids at the local rink. She's with the Diversity Inclusion National Committee, where they're trying to make hockey a sport that is more inclusive. And she does a lot of work with on campus too, just trying to improve the sport to make it better for everybody. So she got this award and I thought, wow, she didn't get cut from the team.
It must have been a fun phone call back, like, oh yeah, no, I got an award instead.
Yeah.
Right.
It was pretty cool. So it was a really great year. They didn't have a lot of wins. They had a lot of losses, but I got to tell you, a lot of great lessons and a lot of good bonding and a lot of good memories. It was a good year. Yeah.
I was going to say, Christy Casciano Burns, news anchor, USA Hockey Mom. I don't know where your kids get it from. I don't know where they get that go get them attitude. But no, that's great. Sophia, if you're listening, two things. One is don't grow up. It's a trap. Don't listen to anybody. And the other thing too is if she becomes a lawyer, man, can you imagine that in the courtroom? Like, hey guys, the prosecutor was a hockey player. Like, I wouldn't want to be going up against her at any kind of court, man. But yeah, assuming she does a trial law. Anyway, Sophia, that's awesome. Congratulations. Enjoy your senior year. That's awesome that she had that kind of learning experience. And I remember, for those of you listening who have been listening to the show for a long time, Christy and her were, I'm going to use the word agony last year when there was no hockey and they had to find a way through that. You might not have had a lot of wins on the score sheets, but I think the season was a win because it happened. And you said there was a lot of adversity that got dealt with. And I think that's always a win, especially when you're preparing young adults. I mean, she's not a kid for life. Right.
Yeah. So, all right, Lee, tag, you're it.
Yeah. Look, this season was a massive learning experience for me. So again, to give context, I've only ever coached before last year at the pro and collegiate level. And so last year in Adams, it was mostly practices. It was 95% practices, 5% games because of COVID going on. This year was a full schedule of games, and we played a lot. I think we played over 50. I was told. I was shocked to hear that the other day. And it was an immense learning season for me from a personal standpoint as a father and a coach. I really feel like I've actually got a grip on how to turn the competitive side and the competitive nature off. Right. So I remember even beginning to midseason, it was the worst. It was not that I was shouting in any way. I was not vocal about it, but I had massive, like, anxiety is probably the word, inside of wanting to win or wanting to compete, and to not vocalize it was really hard. And I would actually credit this show a lot. I always gave the right messages about being respectful and that the score doesn't matter. And that, we're trying to learn out here. I always exuded that, but internally, man, it was a struggle for a bit, even with my own kid, watching him, wanting him to, get the puck, go get the puck, things like that. We all feel that. And then sometime around the halfway point, I mean, it was almost like a breaking point. I didn't have a nervous breakdown or anything, but something just kind of clicked to me. Is like, you got to stop, man. Like, just shut it off. Which was really, really hard to do. But it happened. It happened. And I just started enjoying myself, and the scores really didn't matter in my head anymore. And, I looked at the team as a whole and my son as a whole, and they're smiling after every game. I remember one time, guys, I was doing off ice because I told you guys I did this experiment this year with this off ice team building for the 7-8-year-olds, and it was massive success. I mean, but I was doing one of the off ices one time, and they were really being, they weren't really following the directions too well. And I was getting pretty frustrated. And then something snapped at me, and I looked up, and they were all laughing and smiling and together. And I said, you know what? I did it. We did it. Like, they're not listening right now, but they're having a fun time. They're having a blast. And that's what this is all about. And really from that point on, I was able to calm myself down and move forward. In fact, at the last off ice, I had them do this drill. Mike, you would love this. I had 3 milk crates. And, it's the podium drill. I always call it. I think about the 1980 team when they all got on that podium when they won the gold medal, and the whole team, all 10 kids have to get on these crates, and they did it. And I got this great picture selfie of me with all 10 of them standing there, and they have the biggest smiles of the season right there. And that was me going, I just realized we did it. We accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. Future episode, we'll talk about Mites on Ice. We did that last night, man. They had a blast at the Flyers game. Flyers still suck, but we did a blast at the Flyers game, with that. But yeah, as a season as a whole, it was really fun. And again, you got to remember, I've never been in this level of development, right? The Mite level. So to see where we started to where we're at now, both as a team, but also as skills and individuals, has been really fun to watch. A lot of these players come to life. My son, especially, this is his first year of really competitive hockey. To see him score his first goal, to see him understand what it is to be part of a team, to see kids struggle and then find their way back right at this age. I think my funniest moment of the season, kind of quote what I was talking about before, this is not too long ago. I was on the bench and one of the kids was really freaking out. He was really, really kind of having a rough night. And I turned to one of the coaches and I remember saying, I just don't understand what's going on that he is acting this way. And he looks at me. This is somebody who's been coaching youth hockey for a while. He goes, he's 8. It's like, that's a very good answer. And it makes a lot of sense. I had to really change my perception, but I will say this too. Coaching staff got along all season. No issues. Parents got along all season. I've been in the game long enough, even though not youth hockey, to know that was a special group. There was no drama, right? No real drama this season. We did everything together. We played together. We still have a few weeks left together. That's a blessing whenever you come down to it, because I hear from the other teams. I know the politics going on the other teams. And, it's just anytime you get a season like that, where there's little drama and you played together. We won we're 2-0 in tournaments this year, which at the Mite level is really your big challenges, right? I don't even know what our record is, right? I don't care. There's no districts in the Mite level. So I think it was a pretty successful season. A shocker to most people, I don't think I'm going to coach next season. My coaching this season and last season was out of necessity. With coronavirus, that was the only way I could probably see him, get in the rink. It might be tough to remember, but at the beginning of the season, it was looming, right? We didn't know if the season would even get through it. And the head coach wisely, and I give him a lot of credit for this, because I was on the fence at the beginning of the season. He said, if that thing comes back and they close the rinks down or they close down the stuff, this is the only way you'll get to see them. So I enjoyed every minute of it. I really mean that. I enjoyed the learning experience, but I don't know if I'm going to be back next season just because of the time commitment. And it's stressful in a good way. I hope that makes sense. I think people in the hockey will know what I mean by that. But yeah, I might need to take a break, right? And let my son Logan, I really want him to have that experience without me there, right? I don't want to be there over his shoulder, having him look over it, not even in a way that he's worried about me. I don't think that's what it is. I just kind of want him to learn how to walk that road. I want him to learn how to skate on that ice. Got to do the right metaphor on his own, and I'll be in the crowd and I'll be there for him. But we'll see, right?
I don't know that you're going to be in the crowd though.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Probably
maybe I'll pull a Tom Brady and in 6 weeks I'll change my mind. I've decided I still want to compete. And no, but again, that was long, but I think, it was a wonderful year of growth, of hockey, of relationships. I really enjoyed working with this coaching staff and parents and coaches. I want to, I've never said this publicly. I want to say this too, when I walked into this, Mike, you'll appreciate this. When I walked into this, there were people who knew who I was and what I have done in this game. And I purposely said, you got to throw all that out the window. I have never coached at this level before. So while I have a lot of experience in the game, I don't have experience at the Mite level. And I want everybody to know this. I was a student to these coaches this year. And I took that approach with all of the experience I have. That ego wasn't there. I have never coached 8-year-olds and I trusted them and they totally taught me a lot. And we had great conversations and I was obviously there for them too when they had questions. But coaches, when you walk into the room next year, parents know this, know where you stand at the level you're at, right? And know that you can always be learning. Like that's the biggest advice I can give, right? You always want to be learning as a coach. right? When you stop learning or when you think you got to figure it out, you're going to have problems. There is no equation that works forever, right? It's a continuous learning thing. My quote is always, good coaches know everything. Great coaches know nothing, right? And I have learned things at the 8U level. Mike, you'll like this too. Christy, you too. I don't know why I keep putting it, Mike. I've learned things I can apply now at the pro level from 8-year-olds. That's mind-boggling to me, right? But it's an open mind thing. And my name is Lee Elias, and that's my 10-minute monologue on Our Kids Play Hockey.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, thank you.
I bet a lot of parents can relate to that too. And a lot of, it's tough if you coach your kid's team. Yeah. It's never easy. And I'm sure a lot of coaches feel that ambivalence.
Yeah,
I mean,
the stress is there.
Yeah, you want to be there for them,
right,
and you want to coach them, and you want to help them develop. But then you're so involved, you're not right, getting to sit in the stands and actually watch them grow.
Yeah,
so close to it.
It was funny. The head coach and I were talking a little bit last night, and it was like we're coming up for air. Like, you don't realize you're underwater the whole season, if you know what I mean. And it's like, you just take a step back, and it's like, oh, dad, coach, players, parents, and you just come up for a second, and you start to wonder, man, did I need to put that much pressure on myself or things like that? But look, it was a successful, however you slice it, I looked at this season as successful from my point of view. I had a wonderful time. I'm going to say it again. The parents and the coaches were just wonderful to me, to my son. When my kids scored, they cheered. I think that says a lot right there. And when their kids scored, I was so happy for them. Right. And I said this on a previous episode, generally care greatly for every child on that team. You know what I mean? And the same way I do about players, at the higher levels. Right. And I think that's special, right? When I can look at every kid on the team and say, man, I really was invested in you for a year. You know what I mean? And I meant it. So, Mike, I do want to throw it back to you. I gave you plenty of time to think about it. Think about this. I'm a talker, but yeah, and again, any takeaways from you, any thoughts from you, just reflecting on your season, right? And please talk about your son too, because as we talked about in previous episodes, he had a little bit of an unfortunate end to his season.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard when you get so where I am, just because of what I do for a living now, my season, it really never ends, right? So there's always the running of, okay, well, we were talking about tryouts 4 weeks ago for now, and then you're thinking, and then right now, I mean, I literally having conversations today about what tournaments we're looking at in September and October.
That's crazy, man.
And it's not just for my son or my own kids, right? So because of the other organizations I work with. So what happens sometimes, I kind of they all meld together in right. Okay, what were the great experiences that you can get out of seasons? And I think that's one of the hardest things is to break them up. Right?
Mike, I want to cut you off real quick, because I will tell people this: if you work professionally in this game, which Mike does, the off season for us is not an off season. I always said this: the off season is just when we're not playing games, right? Or season in season. I mean, if you played spring and summer, but the off season, if you work in the game professionally, we're just not playing games, but we're working. I think a lot of people, Mike, and I'm saying this for your benefit, a lot of people don't realize Mike Benelli works on this all year, right? It might be sunnier outside and warm, right? But the season never ends for us. And that's not a complaint. It's a blessing to be able to do that. But it's just the off season is just when we don't play games. That's it.
Yeah, but it's also, Christy said about her daughter, right? About, when the season ends. I mean, I used to love that even as a player, just to go to the beach for 3 days.
Right.
Just smart. Or get out of the whole, the piece that you're in, and just reflect on the season and right. Or don't reflect at all. Just
I don't think the girls in a room are thinking about the season right now.
No, and that's so great, right? And I think that's where, whether you won a championship or lost or had a great season or not, I mean, one of the things that I've found year in and year out, that the best years that I have as a parent are the years that I see all these relationships blossom with my kids. Yeah. Right. And and if you can, and at the end of the day, they don't even care what the season, even the ones that win the championship, they say, okay, well, that was cool, but these 4 guys I'm going to the movies with, next weekend, and I've built these bonds, and as the pyramid gets tighter and tighter in hockey, we talked about this a number of times on these episodes, that your kids end up with these friendships for life, and for me, I mean, watching those, I was really fortunate at the team I coached to almost have them for 2 years straight without really like only maybe 4 or 5 kids being different on the roster. So that was actually so much different than the normal traditional, kind of youth hockey setup, where it wasn't like, how can we cut these kids fast enough to get a whole new group of kids? It was, how can we keep them and let
That's the
them
way it's
develop
supposed
together.
to be.
Yeah. And so I think that was really fun for me. I mean, I think that was it was fun to watch the kids, mature. And honestly, it was really fun for me to watch parents go from one extreme to almost come to my side of my dark side of, listen, we just have to have fun out here and just enjoy this journey.
That's the light side, Mike.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, but in the world of youth sports, right? That we don't see, well, that, but we don't see that. We see that. Well, if my kid didn't play Division I college hockey, then everything was a failure. And I think, I don't know. I just, and my little guy, watching those kids, they really love coming to the rink like that. They can't wait to find out, who they're playing and then, what they're doing right afterwards, and inviting each other over to birthday parties and swimming meets and whatever, or, just play dates and things like that. So those are all the great things from that we all try to bring from youth sports. And I get bogged down in it. No doubt about it. Like day to day, you don't see all those things, but over the course of a year, you could sit back and be like, wow, well, that was actually wasn't so bad, get through it. But it was, but my, anytime, and I'll actually do so one of the things I do as a coach is I send out a survey at the end of the year that my parents will get this week, actually. And it's all anonymous. They can say whatever the hell they want on it. And it's just basically, it's 20 questions about me. What do you think about the season?
Yeah.
How do you think about my coaching style? What worked? What didn't work?
That's a great tip. That's a great tip for coaches, Mike.
Yeah. And I just like it because it gives me an opportunity to go like, wow, I didn't realize how, I thought I communicated well, or I thought I did this, or wow, I really need to change my messaging because obviously this group of parents didn't get the message. Right.
Yeah. So that's a great point.
And the only way to do that is to ask.
Right. Our organizations always did that end of the year survey that they would give to all the parents. What did you, the coaches never even saw it, went right to,
they don't need the answers.
They never got to see it. It went right to the rink management, the league management.
Right.
So asking us, what did you think of the season? What would you like to change? How were the coaches?
I think it's a great idea.
Survey. It's great. And then, maybe there was a general consensus about a particular coach's style that maybe they'd need to review. If enough parents anonymously answered about this coach, and it was all a common denominator, that maybe the league needs to take a look at this coach and maybe have a little conversation with them or pick somebody else. I think that's good.
Yeah, it's so funny because when you read the anonymous notes, you basically know who wrote them because you're just like, well, I can kind of tell who. I mean, not that you have to call anybody out, but you can you hear in the email, you hear in the survey what you've heard all year. So but there's a lot of but it gives organizations an opportunity to look at the coaching staff and say, wow, I thought this guy won the whole thing, but 9 of his kids quit. So what do we do?
Look at.
I will say this, just an action item for coaches that might be listening. I think an after season exit interview, that's what we call them at the top, or an exit form like that is really beneficial for you as a coach. So Mike, you actually just reminded me that, when I was coaching college, I used to sit down with all the players. It wasn't exactly anonymous, but I gave them the opportunity to criticize and to also compliment things that we did. And I told them to be very honest. And I came out with a report from my coaching staff of what we can do better and what worked well. And same thing at the pro level. I want to know as a coach what I can do better. 2 things I'll say on this, because coaches, I think the anonymous route, especially with Google Forms, this is very easy to do nowadays. You should want the criticism. You should want to hear the things you did good and bad. It'll make you a better coach. And to Mike's point, if this is what I would say, when people fill that out, Mike, and it's a criticism, you go, I know who that is. This is what I think about that. If someone's willing to put that on paper, it's probably a legit criticism from their point of view. If there's parents you think that are thinking things or saying things behind your back and they don't put it on that form, that stuff's most likely BS. It's just people complaining, right? Like, so I'm saying if a parent has the guts to put on that form, hey,
Well, it's the
I
it's
think
the
you really
adage,
suck
right?
at this. They probably mean it. You know,
Yeah, and
you know what I mean?
it's the
yeah.
old adage you get that when you're in with a parent, like, oh well, everybody thinks this. I go, well, who's everybody?
Yeah, you.
Is
It's
everybody
you.
you? You're the
Right.
only one. Because I
Right.
talked to all the other parents. Like I've talked to all 15 parents, and nobody thinks this, or
Right.
they're not willing to say it. So all I got to say is, if you have a complaint, and I listen, there's a million complaints. So just voice them, and I can
Right.
fix them.
Like,
But
well, here's
don't-
the thing: we can't fix them as coaches if we don't hear them.
Well, I've said this all the time, right?
Right.
As we reflect on the season, don't give me an email now that on September 16th, your son was bullied in the locker room and
Right.
nobody did anything about it. I said, September 16th.
Right.
I said, and you held that.
And
all
now
year?
he's best friends with the kid who beat him.
Oh yeah,
bullied
and
him.
then it's over. Or the kid's like, it's like, I just saw his name on the tryout sheet. I said,
yeah.
was it that bad?
Be
So
proactive.
or what was it? Yeah, and I think that so reflecting on the season, that's to me, that's how I'll reflect, and prepare for next season, is knowing, where and then again, I think from going back to as a coach,
Right.
it also helps you determine if you're going to continue to coach, how you're going to change your messaging for the next year.
Yeah, I think those exit type things are very important. I think that coaches should sit down with their players and have a good candid conversation. And this really is at every level.
Yeah.
And that should be a two-way conversation, what the player can work on, but also what the coach can work on. I openly ask my players, what can I do better? All right. I might not follow every single suggestion, but I want to know. And coaches, you should want to know. And if the attitude is, what's a 12-year-old going to tell me that I don't already know? Man, that's a bad attitude. That's not the right way to be looking at this. Right. Even you should have the lack of ego for a kid to be able to tell you something, and you can go, yeah, I agree with that, or I don't agree with that, but you should want to hear it. All right. And never underestimate how far it goes that a player can go, wow, he listened to me, or she listened to me. That goes so much further, especially in the youth hockey ages where these kids don't, we tell them to stand up for themselves, but when then they do, we tell them, hey, you're just a kid. So you got to put them in that position.
And I've always loved that. I've loved to, get kids outside the locker room. Like, okay, what is what's the problem here?
Right.
Well, coach, we should be doing this. So that's great. So how will we solve this problem? Well, we should be doing this, or we should be doing that. Okay.
Right.
Well,
skill.
Okay. So knowing all this, would it be helpful if the 5 players you just mentioned were actually ever at practice? Oh yeah, that would be helpful. Okay, so let's start there. Let's start with that piece, right? Or would it be helpful that every day you didn't go to Taco Bell? That would help.
Yeah.
Let's start there. So
Yeah.
we all want to get to the end game, right? And I think, but having a conversation with it's so different than you have an exit. Like my exit interviews at the college level were always really, mostly very mature,
Right.
conversations about careers and what could help a player with time management. And wow, I really want to take my next year I want to teach. So coach, what's the schedule looking like so I can be a student teacher and educate. Now that conversation is so much different than it is with an 8-year-old. So the only way you're getting it from an 8-year-old is because primarily hear from the parent. Did your son or daughter have fun?
Right.
Yes or no? Did they enjoy coming to the rink? Yes or no? Did they ever feel like they weren't, that they were excluded from being a part of the team? Yes or no? These are very simple things where you could say, wow, why did you think that way? Oh, I didn't realize that. Or, wow, I really got to do a better job of understanding that. And I think the conversations around now about, shortening the bench and playing the win. And listen, I'm all for it. I really am.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go on a team and that was your year and you were unhappy with it, but you knew going, like, when we talk about reflecting on a season, if your coach accomplished what he explained what he or she was going to do at the beginning of the year, whether you liked it or not at the end of the year, you came in knowing, as long as there was communication. We talked about this. How do you set your season up for success? Right? We talked about this months and months ago. Well, one of the things is to have your mission statement done and have your goals set out. So if your goals matched up with where you ended up, but the parents didn't like it in between because it didn't match up with their goals, go back to the mission statement.
Right.
Go back to the beginning of the year and say, well, I accomplished what I set out to do. Somewhere you lost what the goal was.
Mike, my kid didn't make the
Sometimes
NHL.
it can be the smallest thing. And I'll use an example. We were with this one coach for 2 years. First year, a lot of new kids on the team, and we just kind of jumped right into the season. End of the year, a lot of the parents felt I wish we could have gotten to know everyone before the kids started playing. The coach took that into consideration. And the next year, he had a couple of team bonding events that were a lot of fun for the kids. And the kids got to know each other outside of the helmets and the pads before the season started. And you could see the chemistry improve because they felt like they knew each other as kids, not just as hockey players and in positions. So, I mean, it was that little tiny nugget that coach took and said, I didn't realize that, and then improved it for the next season. So those exit interviews can be very helpful.
Yeah, my last game, I mean, I was like, I remember last game looking at one of the guys that I coach with, and I'm like, I have I keep like a lineup card, and I take a lot of notes during games.
Yeah.
And I'm just writing, and Jesus, I wish we had practice tomorrow right now. You know, like I'm like, we could have, like, there's so much we learn, but now this week, like you see that at the end of the year, all these things that you wanted to do are coming together, and you're like, now we need to have practice again. So
that's the professional mindset coming through, though, Mike. That's
it's hard. Like, man, we should have practice next week. I said we could really fix a lot of these things.
Yeah, I always say if you did it right, you don't have to coach too much at the end of the season, which is what you're saying too. But I know what you're saying too. You know, when it clicks and then you got to split up and you might not even get the same team back. That can be very frustrating.
Well, that's why I think coaches. That's why I think coaches leave the sport, is that they don't feel the satisfaction that they really made it. They made an impact. Like I'll have, probably getting them right now. I'll get emails every day. Hey, Mike, you know, I really enjoyed the year this year. Thanks for your support, but there's zero way I'm coming back and helping. And a lot of it comes down to, you know, because
is that how it was worded? I hope it wasn't worded that way.
No, well, there's a lot of F-bombs in there, but it's more like I really love, I love hockey. I love the sport. And I have this beef with all of education. I do a lot of lacrosse and other sports, and it's about, you know, the amount of time you have to put into to be a coach, between background checks and, you know, and coaching education and continuing education, mentally, all the stuff you do, right? And then to feel like it's so sad that you could get that sucked out of you by the end of the year, and then we're losing great coaches because you know, no matter what. It's like, I don't know, if you find a really good restaurant and all you do is beat up the waitress every day, like saying, oh, this sucks or that sucks. Yeah. And then you lose that person. You don't realize until you get really bad service how great it was. And I think that's what we do in hockey all the time is, you know, we beat up the really good people, and because we're expecting this other level, and then we get worse people to fill in that void.
I will tell you this. I have a friend who lives well outside the organization I'm in. He's in his late 20s. And he was coaching a AA team this year. He's been coaching most of his adult life. And he's not going to coach next year. He's stepping away. And it's because of the parents on his team. And again, we keep this anonymous, obviously, but we had a conversation, and he just said, you know, we were probably playing a level up where we should have been. So we didn't win a lot of games. Parents they were coaching from the sidelines, right? And you know, he's doing his thing, and it's funny because at the end of the year they won a AA tournament. You know, it came together, Mike, like you said. But he had enough. And I'll tell you that, you know, this is a situation, and parents, I want you to be aware of this situation too. You know, I think he's 27, 28 years old. This coach doesn't have kids, right? And it's real easy to forget, you know, what those coaches' mindset is. They don't have kids, so they don't see certain things, but they're focused on coaching, right? You don't want to run those people out of the game. I think he'll be back one day, but he needs a break, and it's because of the parents. And now, parents listening, I don't want you to think I'm pointing a finger at every parent. There are so many good parents out there. And it is true that it's like one rotten apple ruins the whole basket. That's how it is. But, you know, we have to combat that together. Right. And again, it's awkward. I'm not saying you should stand up to the parents, but, you know, one thing you can do, tell the coach he's doing a good job or she's doing a good job if you think they're doing a good job. You know, this is something I had to learn as a coach. Like my mind, I'm a very positive person, but when I'm coaching, my mind tends to see the negatives, right? Mike, we have to find and uncover the things that we need to fix. And I've mentioned this on an early episode. When I was a young coach, I never complimented my players when they did stuff good. I rarely complimented myself. It was always fix mode. And when I learned to reverse that and look at my wins and compliment the team, it really changed everything. It changed everything about how I approached the game. Here's another tip for coaches. And you guys are going to roll your eyes and think I'm funny here. Write down your wins in a daily journal every day. Every day you're alive, write down your wins, the things that you won on the day. It could be hockey, it could be life, it could be everything. At the end of the day, you're going to have a 365-page book. And most of those days, you're probably going to have wins, right? You know, we all win at something every day. Again, don't get me wrong. We have bad days. All right. But we don't take enough time to just celebrate our victories or even give ourselves a breath of, I did a good job today. Like I said, with those kids, I thought I was doing a bad job. I really thought I was. One day I was like, man, I have no attention here. I can't do what I'm trying to do. And I looked up, they were smiling and laughing. I had to remind you, you did it. This is what you wanted. You know what I mean? Like Mike, you said about mission statement, right? So I just think that I'm going to turn it towards this a little bit. As a parent, as a coach, we all have to do better in hockey. I'm not saying this is limited to just hockey, but the animosity, the incredulity at this level is becoming unbearable. All right. And it's disturbing to see the lack of communication, the amount of talking behind people's backs, which, don't get me wrong, like that's part of life, but doing that without trying to find a solution, I don't understand. And this is, parents and coaches have to work together. Just to reiterate real quick, we've talked about this in several episodes. Coaches, it behooves you before the season starts to meet with these parents, put down the ground rules, tell them your mission statement, tell them what you're going to try and accomplish, lay down the 24-hour rule, really clear expectations, right? I know how important that is. All right. Also, we talked about this with parents, the ones that are talking too much, ask them if they want to volunteer. It doesn't always have to be, put them in the score
That'll
box.
keep them quiet.
Yeah. Put them in the score box. You'll give them a role. You'll find out real quick how serious.
Well, make sure it's not the goalie's parent, because they'll have like 79 shots on net.
Right. My kid has a 999 save percentage and he's 12. Yeah.
Hey, I heard you guys won 3-2 yesterday. Yeah, there was 78 shots against them. I'm like,
yeah.
Who was the
all of them were on net.
Bad.
Are you sure? Yeah. No. And he had 4 assists.
But I agree, Lee. I mean, I think it's so. I think the perspective. I mean, listen, if we're talking about reflection, we're talking about really how did our season go and the pros and cons. I always think that the pros always outweigh the cons. Unfortunately, just in life, the cons are the ones that you keep going back to.
The bad review, right? Just as a metaphor, it's like you don't go to a great restaurant and then give them a great review, right? Most people, you give them a bad review when you give a review. Most people don't go on there and give 5-star reviews. It happens, but you're motivated when it's bad.
I'm so jaded in my line of work. Like I go out and if I go to get my car, serviced or have like a great experience, like I go out of my way.
Me too. Yeah.
To say and put something on Yelp or whatever that
not
I
enough
had
people
a great
do that,
experience.
Mike, but not enough people do that.
I probably only do it because nobody's ever doing it to me. I'm like, Jesus. Right. I mean, this really was a
By
great
the way,
experience.
Mike, Christy and I are both going to need copies of your anonymous survey. If you could just send them to us,
yes,
we'll fill them out anonymously.
Please. He never kept still in his podcast.
Right,
horrible.
He was a horrible podcast sidekick. No, you were phenomenal. Keep going, Mike.
5-star review for Mike.
I gave him 6 stars.
But I think it's good. So
out of what
things that I think it's I'll send it to anybody. If any coach is listening and wants the Google,
I do.
Sheet,
I'm serious, Mike. I would actually like to see that.
Yeah, it's a good one and it's fun. And like I said, it's a good way for you to graph it out and like, okay, well, I thought my season was horrible, and 90% of the people actually enjoy the season. And I keep it away from wins and losses because I can't control that. I can't control any of that. No. Right. And so so I think the way and the nice thing for me now, this is just real quickly as a coach. Going back to my organization, when I do that survey and I get all these negative reviews on things that were even out of my control, like I didn't like the times of practice ice, we didn't like the travel, we didn't like that, I could go back to the organization and say, this is why we're losing. This is what I'm fighting against. You have to help me. Right. Because these are the things that I had no control of. Like the website wasn't updated, the locker rooms weren't clean, whatever, all these different things that I have zero control over is what you can go back as a coach and say, I need more support here from the organization side. And I think it just helps with everybody. And then, at the end of the day, it really is good to have self-reflection. I know, NGBs do this all the time with their national programs. They do, most of the top programs in the world do journaling, and they do where players have to go every day and say, what are my goals this week? What are my goals today?
Right.
What did I accomplish? What didn't I accomplish? Where can I go? And that's again, these are all great pie in the sky stuff to do. You got to find a way. And we've talked about this on multiple podcasts of you got to pick and choose how much effort you could put into each piece, but then go out and find those people that can help you fulfill the goals you want. the big goals, like Christy said, if you need a score, like me this year, not one time, there's a win. Not one time did I worry about the scorekeeping because one of the parents said they would take it over. I never heard from them. All I knew was every game I came to, the scorekeeping was done.
That's
and
a
there was
beautiful
somebody doing,
thing.
and there was somebody doing the clock. It's incredible.
Right.
Like that's a huge stressor. It's a
Well,
huge stressor.
and takes your focus away.
Well, it's just something
yeah.
like I don't know who the score.
Well, look, to be a great coach, in my opinion, right? You want to minimize distractions. You want to delegate as much as you can that's going to be a distraction, and you want to focus on what you do well. I'm a team bonding coach. When I work with teams, that's what I do. I don't go to the tactical coach unless he asks and tell him what to do. That's his job. Yep. Right. And the mistake most coaches make is thinking, I got to do all of it. Do what you do insanely well and surround yourself with good people that fill in your gaps. Yeah. Right. And like I said, I don't want Mike Bonelli worrying about the timekeeper before the game. I don't want him running around looking for a timekeeper. That's a waste of his talent. Right. So in my opinion,
I'm not in the locker with the kids. Like, so now they're like, oh my God, the game's starting in 2 minutes. Hey, can you do the clock?
And then it's your fault that they lost.
Yeah. I mean, but I think that made my life, like I enjoyed going to the rink, and that's piece of like the check off of Mike Bonelli. I don't have to worry about this. Like, that's awesome. I don't even, and I got to the point where it's like, I don't even ask the person if they did it.
Yeah, we're talking like it's not a big deal, but that's actually a really massive.
I know that. Yeah, I know. Listen. There's little things, right? I know people think are stupid. Like they're like, "Are you insane, Mike, the scorekeeper?" Or, "Hey, we had like my assistant coach, unbelievable at making sure we always had pucks." Now I know that's a stupid little thing, but if you show up for practice and you have 4 pucks in your bag, your head wants to explode. Yeah. And I think these are all the little things you can go in the locker room and be ready for the game, and all these other pieces are taking place. I would show up to, a tournament, and everyone knew where their assignments were for that night for dinner. Great. Phenomenal. Like this is like this. These are the kind of things where, Mike,
it's called an organization for a reason.
It's just delegation was more. It wasn't even delegating. It was accepting help. It was like, you want to help? How can you do it? Well, I'm great at this. Go nuts.
You're off. Yeah, you're on.
I think that's great.
And then everybody has a talent. We had this one mom who was so good at organizing dinners and team events when we were away for tournaments. So she would take that task over. The coach never had to worry about it. All the coach had to do was just show up and focus on the games and the kids. And she took care of everything else. And of course, we'd all help her too in the planning aspect. Same thing with if you're, got to do fundraisers. We had somebody who would organize that. We had somebody who would organize if you need paper plates and all the utensils. If you're having a pizza party that day, that person would do. It's great when parents step up and say, "Hey, I'm good at this. I have contacts here. I own a restaurant. You can come and have your pizza party at my place." All these things when everybody comes together and pitches in, makes it so much easier, and the parents feel involved. Like, oh, I own a stake in this team. So then all of a sudden you start caring more about what your kids are doing and where they're going. And so you don't have to worry so much as a coach about all those little things, because it is time consuming. You're volunteering your time, you're taking away from your family.
Right.
So if parents can step up and help ease that for the coach, please do it. I mean, and you'll feel rewarded too. Parents will feel like, I feel like I'm a part of this. Everybody wins.
What's funny, Christy, is you just made me realize something was that, we were late in the season, and somebody came up to me, team managers, like, I need to get gifts for the kids. And I kind of went, well, I own 2 hockey companies that could provide gifts for the kids. And I was like, don't get me wrong. This definitely benefits the business. I'm not lying or holding that back, but she was so thankful. Like, oh, you really saved the day on this. Like, and I didn't even think about that at the time, but yeah, you're right. like as a
great
parent,
gift is when hockey never stops. That's a good gift at the end of the year.
Yeah, well, that was one
our
of them
end
too.
of the year banquet. We would always go to the dad who had this restaurant.
Right.
I got this.
I didn't even think about that from a parent point of view. Actually, I was thinking, oh, I want to help her, because our team manager, Des is her name, was unbelievable this year. Right, unbelievable team manager for an 8U level. Everything was taken care of. As coaches, Mike, like you're saying, now that I'm thinking about it, I just never had to think about anything outside the game this year. There was a couple of times, mostly at away games, that one of the coaches would turn to me and go, "Do we have a ref today?" which happens at 8U.
That's the most stressful,
right?
That's the most stressful time of the day. Is
well, we just played a game.
Around, going, did anybody see any refs walk into the ref room?
Mike, you'll love this. We just played a game. Parent was reffing, didn't have a whistle. We had to play a whole game without a whistle. And
isn't it amazing though when a parent refs the game as a volunteer and there's no offsides? Like the kids just know. Right. They never go offsides.
Right. Well, it was funny. I remember this parent without the whistle. It's just everybody stop. It's just because it was just kind of funny. But you know what, the kids, like you said, the kids kind of got used. They learned to look for that because there was no whistle. We worked together. I was joking with the coach on the other bench, which is what you should do at 8U, by the way. But yeah,
you can borrow me. I've got a great whistle. I'm a really good whistler.
Yeah, well, listen, I would love Christy now. Anyway.
Oh no, mine is loud.
Yeah, I believe
stop
you.
a room.
Then don't stand next to me when you do it because I don't scream enough for that. Let's keep going here just before we finish. Mike, I did want to come back to you about your boy because he did have an injury, a season-ending injury this year, and I wanted to approach you as a parent and as a coach about how you approach that, right? Because that's not an easy scenario.
Yeah,
it was a break. It was a clean break. You showed us the X-ray. I was like, oh, that's not a fracture. That's a break.
Yeah. So for his, in his so I was actually not even coaching the game. I couldn't believe it. I was up in the stands with my wife and we were watching, and he's playing with a different team, and he just got railed from not a great hit, probably really vicious kind of predatory hit. And when he got hit, I was like, he's down, and my wife Sue, she's like, oh, you gotta go down there. He's hurt. I'm like, he doesn't get hurt. He's fine. I'm sure he's fine. He's just probably got the wind knocked out of him. So I kind of waited there, probably good. It was a long time. It was probably like a minute, which is long, right? When you're watching your kid out there, you're like, hey, you know what? He's not getting up, and that's not great. And then when he tried to get up, and his hand just fell off his wrist, basically, just he broke both bones in his wrist. So I think, and for him to get off the ice and kind of like, yeah, this ain't good. And for me, trying to be, it's so weird because usually you're with other people's kids when you're coaching that get hurt. And like that instant, like, oh my God, I got to get out. Like I would probably be more attuned to another child getting hurt than my own kid getting hurt. Cause I'm like, well, I don't want to startle him.
Right.
But I think it ended. Listen, I always look at these kind of things differently, right? It ended with, there was only 3 weeks left in the season. We were kind of, it wasn't like we were playing for a state championship or something. He's still young. I was more bummed out that he's missing the beginning of the lacrosse season probably. And he was bummed out that he wasn't with his teammates, because your goal, right, is to get better and better and better, and felt like he was playing well. But I will say this, and this is what I love about team sports, right? He didn't break his wrist on the playground. He didn't slip in the driveway, taking the garbage out or something. He broke his arm in a game. The outpouring from parents and other coaches was phenomenal. And watching that, like, for me as a parent, that I really enjoyed. And I think, and it was funny because, and as you guys know on the podcast, Lee and Christy had written this book, When Hockey Stops. And it was literally the perfect timing, for like an inspirational.
Unfortunately, that's true.
Yeah, but for an for something like for a story that because you can't just be like, oh, this is horrible. Yeah. This is gonna be, your life is over. Listen, he didn't blow out an ACL. He's still gonna be able to play. Yeah. He didn't get a massive concussion. He didn't break his right arm, which he writes with and does all his homework with. He's milking it pretty good still with the left, but I think, like, to me, it was like, okay, it broke. Listen, kids get injured every day, right, doing stupid things, right? And or playing competitive sports. Hockey is a very vicious sport. It just is. Kids are gonna get hurt. But to have the resources like your book, to help me talk about it. And then the coolest thing I thought out of everything was the fact that he's like, oh, I could do this, or I could do that, or I didn't even think about doing that, or I could go outside and shoot baskets with my right hand, or I could go try to stick handle with my good hand, or I can do air squats, or whatever all the different things were that you could do without an arm. And he could start, playing ping pong, and without, learning how to serve with one hand,
right?
Like all these kind of neat things that we're doing, and the fact that he still wanted to be around his teammates and be, and his teammates reaching out to him. That's what youth sports to me is all about. That's why you belong to a club and an organization and a group. It's because you want to see those kids rally around your kids together. and help them overcome, when you're 14, listen, it's, if I broke my arm right now, I'd be devastated too. I'd be like, what the hell am I going to do?
Right.
Like it's, it really debilitates you for a lot of different things.
Yeah. Life goes on. And that's, that's not an easy realization. If you get stuck in a moment, and we all do this at times in our lives, good and bad, right? You get stuck in the good moments too. You get stuck in a moment, you can lose track of things. Life must continue to go on no matter what you're facing. And, Mike, while that is the subject of our book, it's just, look, I learned so much when I was injured about myself, about, things I can do. It's the adversity. This goes for coaches. This goes for everybody. It's not just injury, right? That adversity you face, how you respond to that that's what makes you who you are. It's not what happens to you. It's how you react to it. Right.
Yeah. And no doubt. And I think that, so, and going with that too, now realizing, and you look at the weeks, right? A broken arm is like 8 weeks.
Right.
And then you say, but the pressure, listen, I watched a kid that broke his wrist the week before on the ice the next week. I'm like, whoa, what the hell is the rush? Like, why are you, and with no equipment on, just like, oh, now
that's ridiculous.
I'm like, that's how you're really going to get hurt. You think you're hurt now? So I think but for a kid, like, how do we, like, and there's so much pressure saying you gotta get better quicker. And I said, listen, it is what it is. Like, even as the surgeon's like, it's a bone. It's going to heal when it heals. Like,
maybe in 100 years from now, it might take a week, but
the fact maybe they can zip it. But I think now it's just having the patience to allow, and this goes with any injury, concussions, like the pressure to come back to play is there. And I think we all have to, it's hard to fight that. And I fight that every day as a coach, not only with my own son, but other people's kids, like being able to say, listen, I don't want the kid back. Keep him home. They don't need to be here. And I'm like one of those guys too, that if a kid gets hurt, like, I don't need him around the team all the time. Like, you don't need to be on the bench, because I think it actually is worse. Let me just go home and catch up on all the things. There's a lot to be said for being there, but you don't have to be at everything. Like, just take this time to actually, because me, if I was hurt and I'm sitting on a bench, I'm miserable. Like, I don't want to be there. So it's a hard balancing act.
Right. My son broke his wrist at age 12 during a hockey tournament. So he was out for 6 weeks. But toward the end, the coach did invite him to come help coach. And he loved that. He really got into it. Right. And he actually helped the kids on the bench because he could see things as he was a defenseman. So he would help the defenseman, pick out the kind of plays or watch out for this kid. And he loved that the coach looked to him to help inspire the kids to play. And he even gave a little speech in the locker room. And it was a great experience for him. He missed it, and he did have to figure out, how to do things without his right hand, which was his writing hand. But
no, look, I always look at it. There were so many positives from this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And I really try to be like, okay, you broke your arm. Let's think about what the next steps are.
Yeah. It's done.
But for Joey, he liked still being around the team. So for him, that worked.
Well, he had a role. I think that's a mistake a lot of coaches and parents make with this is give that kid a role. Give them a job to do. Don't just, like Mike said, don't let them just stand on the bench. That's agonizing. Give them a role on the bench. Give them a role.
No. My injured player was very vocal on the bench.
Well, I wonder where he got that from, Mike.
It was so funny. At one point where he goes, I gotta get off this bench. I can't take it anymore. I said, I wish I could get off the bench. How come I can't get off the bench?
Mike, you should have left. You should have left right there. Like,
I said, here, you take the damn team. You take it.
I'm going in the stands, Dad. I can't take it anymore.
No, I love it.
So that's it. So I mean, but it was a thanks for asking. But again, that's where being a part of a team is so cool. And watching the kids, texting and sending notes and being involved and keeping him involved,
community.
So that's huge, and I think that's why we have our kids join these things.
It is just a quick metaphor too. You talked about the recovery. Kids are competitive by nature, and I can't tell you how many times this season I've had to use that. It's not a race. This drill is not a race. There are drills where it's a race. Yeah. But the metaphor for recovery for me is I want you to do this as fast as you can, but as in control as you can, especially when you're doing skill development with skating. I always tell the kids, go as fast as you can, but in control. So it doesn't mean do it as fast as you can out of control, right? So I look at recovery the same way. Recover as fast as you can, but do it the right way. All right. Because I'll tell you what, and everyone's heard this, Mike, we do have to say this. If you don't recover the right way and you rush back, you might not feel it now, but you're going to feel it later. All right. In your life. And I was warned about this and I rarely listened. And it's one of those things that I wish I had with some of these things because the injuries mounted up. You know what I mean?
Well, it's not only that, it's the setback of not finishing your recovery. And then
Right.
It's like this happens with hamstrings and groin injuries and like the muscle type, tendon type things. When you don't allow something to heal, and then like we used to, like even when I was coaching at the college level, we always had, we always wanted to rush kids back, but it was like, okay, once you start feeling good, you got another 2 weeks.
Right.
Like
Right.
once you really think
Right.
you're good, you've got time. And I think that's so hard for anybody to do though, right?
It happened to me after my shoulder surgery at 17. I recovered very quickly. The doctor cleared me 2 weeks early. And my father and mother, somehow, I still don't know how they did this. They convinced me to wait 2 more weeks. And I did. And I'm glad that I did.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't play and here's the thing. I remember standing on the bench in a playoff game, cleared to play, but not playing. And that was really hard, but was absolutely the right decision. Because here's the thing. If I played in that game and something happened, and that was it. That would have been it forever, and I forgot to go to college and, so anyway, good stuff there, Mike. Seriously. I'm sure there's a lot of parents listening who are going through that or will go through that in the future, but just closing this episode out, just want to kind of give everybody here a tease, obviously, for the next few weeks. So just because the season's ending for you, like I said, the off season, Our Kids Play Hockey doesn't go anywhere. What we do in the off season is do a lot of interviews. So we're going to have a lot of great guests. This is a tease before we close it. A lot of great guests coming up on the show to kind of discuss the things that we don't typically discuss during the regular season that help you prepare for the game or mindset and everything that we do around it. So make sure you stay tuned here. We may take a break at some point in the future, but we'll have plenty of episodes lined up for you on Our Kids Play Hockey. But let's just go into final thoughts here, and I'll pose it as a question. Just we're heading into the off season. Let's just look at the next 2 to 4 weeks, right? Christy, Mike, what do you do, coach, parent, the next 2 to 4 weeks, considering that, again, evaluations are over. You have that little lull. Spring league might be yelling at you. Other sports might be yelling at you. What do the next 2 to 4 weeks look like? Christy, I'll start with you.
Yeah. Time flies faster than your kid on a hockey skate. So embrace this time, enjoy your family, relax, get to know each other again outside of the rink, and just live in the moment. That's my advice to you.
I love it. Pleasure moment awareness, man. Can't beat that. Stay present. Mike, over to you.
Yeah, those are easy, right? Just try to just know that allow the season to end. That's the only thing I could say. Allow that last season to end, and then just really have a survey of what you did, what you didn't do with your kids, and then we've talked about this a million times. Start looking and don't pick the team that everyone else is picking just because everyone else is picking it. Look and see what fits your child and your needs. And you have a great set. It's your chance to reset. If you complained all year about never going skiing because of the team you were on, then switch teams and find a way to get skiing in. Or just have perspective. And I think it just goes look at the age, look where you're at, take stock in what you did. And then you can, and you ever, it's what's great about seasons in sports, right? You get a chance to kind of reset. You're not locked into a 8-year commitment.
Yeah, I love it, Mike. And I think I'll follow up with both of you on that and say, go outside when the spring hits, look at the sky, look at the birds, take a deep breath, get real present, just let it all out for a minute. And really reflect like we've been doing on this episode. We always say this show's therapy for us. I feel better after just talking about this stuff with you two. And again, just like Mike is saying and Christy is saying, take a minute and really think about what you want, more importantly, what your kid wants, and maybe take a step back before making a decision. The last piece of advice, I'm a writer, Christy's a writer. All right. One of the best pieces of advice I got, and this is hard, is, when you finish a manuscript, put it in a drawer for a year or 6 months or whatever, a month, and don't look at it, and then come back to it and it's fresh. All right. Now you don't have 6 months after hockey season, but you have an hour. All right. Put the season down for an hour. Just reflect, come back to it fresh. What's best for my kid? What's best for me? Ask your child what they want, how they feel. Your experience as a parent or as a coach might be different from your kid. If your kid had a blast and you're not happy, just think about that for a minute. right? Think about that, your motivation for that for a minute. But let's all, the three of us, not to who saw this, but let's collectively take a deep breath together. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay, season's over. Mike's beard is gone. All right, if you want to see Mike's beard, you got to come back. You got to keep coming back, or just watch old episodes.
The growth begins. So,
but look, that's going to do it for this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey as we close out the 21-22 season. Again, we will be here with you all summer. A lot of great interviews. I encourage you all to take a break, but come back to us in 2 weeks and make sure you listen to the episodes that you missed. We enjoy doing it. And also, as Mike alluded to, check out our new book that Christy and I wrote called Our Kids Play Hockey. It's the podcast, When Hockey Stops. You can check that out at whenhockeystops.com. We do episodes with schools. If you're at a school, we read to schools. We love doing it. Feel free to contact us if you're interested in that, and we'll cut you a book on the deal. But again, whenhockeystops.com to get your exclusive copy everywhere. March 29th for those people who have to do it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, and everywhere. That's how big of a release this is. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. For Christy Casciano Burns and Mike Benelli, I'm Lee Elias. We'll see you on next week's Our Kids Play Hockey. Have a great night, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.